Hey everybody, my name is Anthony Janudis, and I'm going to be doing a presentation on the contemporary adaptation of Snow White, which is going to be Grimm's Snow White, which was made in 2012. So, as a basis, I'm going to use the original one, which was made by the Grimm's brothers in 1812. And just a quick overview of it, there's this queen, and she has a very beautiful daughter. Right after she has his daughter, she dies, and the king remarries pretty quick after. And this queen is very envious of beauty. If there's anyone else, she has to kind of take care of them. And so she always asks this magical mirror if she's the most beautiful of them all, and for the longest time it would always say yes. But once Snow White got to the age of 7, it actually said that Snow White was the most beautiful. So the queen had to take care of this. She ordered a huntsman to take Snow White out and kill her and take her heart to her. So the huntsman took her out, and once she realized that she was going to be killed, Snow White begged for her life, and the huntsman felt very bad and guilty and everything, and she was so beautiful that she had to let her go. And she ran away into the woods. And right as that happened, there was a boar that went by, and he killed the boar and took the heart and liver to the queen, and she actually ate that. It's really weird. Anyways, then, as Snow White went on, she traveled through the forest for a while, and she got really tired and everything like that. And right before she was about to keel over dead, she goes into this dwarf's house and goes all around, and eventually the dwarves come back, and they're very welcoming to her, even though she slept in their beds, ate all their food, everything like that. And after a while, the queen asked the mirror, who's most beautiful of them all, and the mirror actually still says that Snow White is. So she goes and she dresses up as an old lady, and she tries to sell this, and she goes up to the mountain where the dwarves live, and she actually gets this lace. And this lace, she tries to wrap it so tight around her that it actually tries to kill her. And Snow White falls down, and the dwarves think she's dead, or she thinks she's dead, and she leaves. The dwarves get back, think she's dead, and it turns out she's not. So then next time, the queen dresses up as a different old lady, and now Snow White knows better not to let anyone in, and she has this comb that she poisoned, and the comb was actually so beautiful that Snow White let her in, and she combed her hair, and she fell down. Same thing happened, dwarves came back, and she didn't die, and then the third time, she dressed up as a different old lady. I don't know why she keeps letting the old ladies in, but she did, because she had this apple where it was halfway poisoned and halfway not. She cut it in half and convinced her to eat half of it. She fell down, and this time everyone thought she was dead. So the dwarves took her and put her in a glass coffin because she was so beautiful, and set her out, just set her down, the coffin down. And then eventually, after lots of time passes, a prince goes by and just sees her, and she's like, wow, she's so beautiful. So then she goes and convinces the dwarves to let them have the coffin, and eventually she's at the coffin gets knocked around, and this piece of apple is still in her throat, and actually comes out, and she wakes up, and then the prince and her get married. And sadly, right at the end, they invite the queen, who goes there and realizes that Snow White is still alive, and she takes these iron shoes and puts them in the furnace, and then makes Snow White wear them, and she dances and dies. But a very sad ending. But yeah, they're the shoes. And now the next thing is the movie itself, and this is where it gets really interesting. So, this movie is really different than what the actual story is, and you think that it would be really similar because it's the Grimm's Snow White, but it really isn't. It's because you can tell that story is really focused on Snow White itself. The story is wrapped around her, but this movie, it basically starts out with the point where the queen that had her already died, and Snow White is of a fairly older age, not 7, but definitely older. And it shows a scene where Snow White's father, the king, gets killed by a dragon, which is totally different than the actual thing. And then after that, it starts going into the story of these elves and these humans. So instead of dwarves, they're elves, and they're actually having a clash between them, and there's a war going on, kind of. And the prince, he's actually trying to go and have peace talks with the queen, and eventually, well, and his idea is to try and marry her and save the kingdom that way. So the story is really wrapped around the elves and the humans itself more than Snow White. She's just more of a main character in it. And she's a main character, but from the whole beginning of the movie, so when she was a little kid all the way up until that age, she was always going to the convent because that's where the queen was sending her. And after a while, and when the prince comes, she sees Snow White, and he's like, wow, she's insanely beautiful. And after a while, the queen actually asks the mirror who's the most beautiful of them all, and the mirror says that it's Snow White. So now the queen is doing the same thing again, but it's actually really different the way it goes about. Like, there are some similarities in it. Like, for example, she sends out a huntsman with 2 other men, and they go out and try and find her and kill her in the woods. And as that happens, they catch up to her, they hold her down, and right as that happens, a dragon shows up. And he hits one of the guys, and he dies, and then the dragon bites another guy and is holding him. They hit Snow White on the head, but don't have time to kill her, so instead he takes the heart of one of the guys that was like eaten and brings it back to her. And instead of her eating it, she actually throws it to those weird looking dogs that are on the screen. And meanwhile, while all that is happening, this elf actually finds her and carries her into their house. And unlike the original story, they are not welcoming at all to see her. They just want her gone as soon as possible. But anyways, she eventually finds where they are. There's a whole bunch of junk in the middle. This movie's it has a lot of fluff in it. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on between the elves and the humans. And eventually they find where Snow White is, and she turns into the queen turns herself using magic, because they have all this crazy magic in this movie. And she turns herself into a peddler, and she poisons this ring. And she takes this ring and eventually finds a way to get on Snow White's hand, and she just falls down, and everyone thinks she's dead right there. And so the elves, with a whole lot of other stuff going on, the elves take her back, and instead of putting her in a glass coffin, they just lay her down and put a white cloth over her and about to light her on fire. And right as that is happening, the prince, who's been trying to find her the whole time, thinking she's been killed or has no idea where she is, runs up right in time and takes off that ring and puts on his own ring that he had on there to marry her. And right as that happens, she comes back to life. So, and then they say they want to get married and everything like that. And besides that, though, there's everything else is just between the elves and the humans and their war kind of thing going on. So it was kind of hard to find some similarities in the movie, but there are some. There definitely are some. So, for example, the mirror. It says the same exact words that are said in the Grimm's Brother original one. There's also the huntsman. He's sent to kill and take the heart of Snow White. Queen, she turns herself into a peddler kind of person, she does that 3 times in the other one. She does it once here, and she also tries to use poison to kill Snow White. And surprisingly, which is really cool, is the ring is like the apple. So, just like the apple, it's in her the whole time, and once it gets out of her body, she's back alive, and everything is okay. The ring is the same exact thing. And there's also where they get married. Except this time she doesn't get killed. So, that's also a good thing. And I'm just listing the differences here because there's a million of them. You guys don't have to read them at all. This was halfway through and I kind of stopped actually putting them because there was getting to be too many. But it's insanely different, to be honest. So I'm just going to kind of skip over that. That was just to show you how many there are, to be honest. Now, let's go into why do I think they did this. So, the movie seemed like it was a really Lord of the Rings type kind of thing almost. It had all that kind of feel to it, the medieval fighting, all that kind of stuff. It wanted to have the fairy tale feel to it, but it didn't have all the fairy tale good feels to it, I'll put it that way. It was more based around the drama and the action that was going on outside of it. So, I will say it also did, it was kind of I would not suggest the movie itself to anyone. Just saying. But yeah, so to be honest, besides that, I don't really have any idea why they do it like that. I am not quite sure. But that's it for today. Thank you guys for watching, and these are all my sources for all the pictures I used. One of these is for the story, the actual Grimm White story itself. So, thank you so much for watching, and if you guys have any questions or anything like that, go ahead and post a reply to this video. I will like to say I'm sorry for kind of the cuts and everything like that. I'm not a very good talker. I stutter a lot. I don't know if you guys picked up on that. But yeah, like I said, thanks for watching again, and go ahead and feel free to ask questions or anything like that. Thank you.